Welcome, everybody, coming at you live from New York. This is Spirit Matters, your daily Bhakti Center Gita podcast. I'm with Achyuta Gopi. My name is Dayal. So glad that you're here with us, our live studio audience, and all of you listening out there. We love you. Just in case nobody told you, we loved you. You are loved, and you have purpose, and your life has meaning, and there's divine connection within you, just in case you forgot. How you doing, Achyuta?
I am sheltered and protected.
She is totally sheltered and protected. That's her phrase for this week.
This week.
Oh, did I? Are we? Yeah, we're spotlighted.
We are?
Yeah, you're just on gallery view.
Oh no.
Go to speaker view. Got it?
No.
No? Oh, you know what? I pinned us. I didn't spotlight us. It's just me. Okay, let me fix this here for everybody. Okay. Let me fix that. I got a spot. This is for all of our Zoom listeners and for those who.
There we go.
We put this on Zoom. Are we on YouTube? I think we're on YouTube.
Yeah, and on YouTube it makes a difference also.
Makes a difference. Okay. YouTubers, that was for you. All right. So where are we launching into this morning? We're in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita.
Yep. 37 to 38.
37 to 38. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and let's do it.
Let's do it.
Arjuna speaking to Krishna, his lamentation and his sort of just his doubts, his worries, his confusions, his existential crisis.
Yeah. So he says, O Janardhan, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that principle of if you know better, do better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people are kind of coming to terms with that, like this idea of taking accountability. And you see so much of it. Celebrities come out with things, and high-ranking people come out with things, and everybody's on this idea of, I owe it to my community to do better, and I owe it to these amount of people to do better. And it's just so interesting to look at Arjuna, pure devotee and administrator, and seeing that he is assessing himself, really looking at, Krishna was previously he was anticipating Krishna's own arguments or counter arguments to his points of view, and thinking that, okay, maybe these people are aggressors. Maybe they have tried to poison me several times and set fire to my home and cheated me out of every scrap of belonging that I have. And, maybe they have insulted my family on countless occasions. But still, does that give me the wherewithal to then retaliate with this action, which could be considered incredibly sinful? And I think it's incredibly responsible. How many times are we really looking at the consequences? Which my sister always likes to remind me. She says, you can never control the consequences to your actions. All we can control are our actions. And then sometimes we try to choose a consequence that we can deal with, but we don't always get to choose the consequences.
Yeah. I love that. That's a beautiful point. And there's, even though Arjuna and Krishna is going to encourage Arjuna to move through these doubts and these worries, etc. What I'm hearing from you is appreciating and acknowledging the reflectiveness of it, of taking the time. I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday about the Bhakti Center, and one of our team members who kind of acts as like a consultant and helps me just kind of like talk things out and like thinking through organizational restructuring and whatever that means. Um, and I said like, do you agree? Like, is this a good conversation, or are we just wasting our time?
Hmm.
And she said it's never a waste of time to be thinking about these things, about thinking about assessing, what we're doing, how we're doing it, and if it's possible to do it better. And so, in one sense, Arjuna, Krishna's gonna kind of be a little cheeky with Arjuna and just kind of chide him and just be like, yeah, well, what are you talking about? Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? Like, come on, let's stand up and do this. Um, but at the same time, it's here for a reason, and there's this glorification or appreciation of the reflectiveness of Arjuna, that simply just like pause and assess. And when we look at one of the main thrusts of the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, one of the main things that we learn is the importance of taking time out of our day, even in the busiest of moments. I mean, there's nobody more busy than Arjuna. It's like, I was like, can you talk real quick? I'm in the middle of a meeting right now. It's like he wasn't just in the meeting of a he wasn't just in the middle of a meeting. He was on the precipice of a war.
Yeah.
In front of the two armies, like ready to go.
Yeah. They had already
Opening
blown.
gladiator scene.
That's right. Yeah. Lots
And
of
so
conch shells, trumpets, everything.
conch shells, trumpets, all of those things. And in the midst of that, he took the time to reflect. He took the time to ask questions. Is what I'm doing, um, is what I'm doing something that I should be doing? What's the outcome? Um, am I clear? And so I think that it just there was a beautiful there was a book that was written by a Christian pastor. It's called "Too Busy Not to Pray." Um, and he was leading this big church throughout in America, and it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was kind of the idea of like, now that I'm so busy, I don't have time to pray. And it was like, I'm too busy not to pray.
Yeah.
Like, I'm too busy to not, like, the more busier, the more complicated things get, the more I need to like lean into and find that time and fight for that time, and make sure it's there, because I need it more than ever.
Hmm.
And I think we see that when we lose, when life grows and gets, as life expands, it gets more complicated, our spiritual anchor needs to deepen and expand as well. And Arjuna demonstrates that on the battle of Kurukshetra, and the whole Bhagavad Gita is spoken because of that. I mean, it's interesting that this whole conversation took place, which was, I think it was, how long did the conversation is reported to have taken? Was it
Something
like
like 47 minutes or something, less than an hour.
less than an hour? Which is, short when you think about like the breadth of the book and like how long people study. But it's also like, that's a long time of like, okay, we're about to start this war, let's have a 45-minute conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, we don't got 45 minutes. Like, did you hear those conchos? Like, the conchos means like, he said, let's get ready to rumble. Like, those words were uttered, and it was like, let's go. And so, we don't got 45 minutes, but it's like, this is important. This is important. And even not just it's important that the outcome changed,
Mm-hmm.
but your consciousness shifted in a way that was important. And so I'm just. I mean, you mentioned as responsible, and I was just appreciating that that moment of reflection, and for all of us to like, when life is just running downhill out of control, high speed, um, taking the example of Arjuna to find that time.
And I've tried. I can't even read the translations, all of them in 45 minutes. Like it's like it does not happen. So it's always miraculous to me how they had this entire conversation and how under an hour, that can change your life. It can change your entire existence. And once again, though, what I love is they have this moment of reflection and this deep moment of friendship and vulnerability and surrender and openness. And Krishna will explain everything, and he'll explain it again if you need it, and it'll be fine. He will do the things, but and then Arjuna forgets.
Mm, yeah,
So, it's natural for life not to be a straight line of transcendence. Pasha is always ready to throw hands.
Pasha's ready to throw hands. Pasha in the comments. We love you, Pasha. Um, there, I was just thinking, kind of at the end of the Gita, Krishna asked, Arjuna, like, are your doubts dispelled? Have you heard everything with the equal mind? Like, is everything good? And it's kind of like they're running towards me right now. Like, do I even have time to answer that question? Just like the pressure of what's taking place in this battle. And there's never a bad time to ask a question.
Hmm. Isn't that something? That's a really, really beautiful point, that there's never a bad time to ask a question.
Totally.
Um,
And
and,
there's
and
never a wrong time to have a doubt,
yeah,
you know? There's never a wrong time. It's like sometimes you think like you can't doubt this now. Like we're ready to go. She's standing at the altar.
yeah, right.
How are
Like,
you doubting this now? It's like
yeah, most people feel like
I
betrayed.
just go through something. I just go through with something because I feel like, well, there's so many things in motion and so many people with this and that. It's like at least work through the doubt. Maybe like, you might not, you know, and again, I think it's important to highlight how, the outcome was the same. Like Arjuna didn't change his course of action, but Krishna took the time to make sure that he was at least clear enough to feel good about it moving forward.
Yeah. And like we were saying, most people would feel betrayed if there was a doubt at that moment in time.
Yeah,
They would have felt like, how could you do this to me? Like, the fact that you are
totally.
doubting this changes my identity and changes our relationship. The
Yeah,
fact that you would dare bring up a misgiving at such a crucial, pivotal moment, for most people, they wouldn't be able to handle it. But Krishna is so firm in who he is,
yeah,
and he's so firm in what they're doing,
yeah,
that he's able to really just kind of hold space for Arjuna and talk him through all of the viable options that Arjuna sees within his mind or outside of it. At this point, he sees no options. He's about to tell him. He's like, I can see no viable option. Like, there's no way out of this. What am I supposed to do?
yeah. There was part of my role at the Bhakti Center is just, in addition to management, administration, and planning and programming, et cetera, there's a lot of just like spending time with people and connecting with people, which is a beautiful part of what I get to do. And sometimes, in any community, there are challenges, interpersonal challenges that come up with people and issues that they have to deal with, and transgressions and this and that. And there was one person I was speaking with, as that person was sharing, their heart with me, and bringing me in to help with the situation. And they said, I'm sorry that you have to deal with this ugly side of like management or community development, the ugly side of things. And I thought of it and I just said, the circumstance may be a little ugly, but what we're doing right now, bringing people together to talk about it, that's the beautiful side. This is really the beautiful side of what I get to do and what we get to do. Um, and the idea of like there's an issue and we're not sweeping it under the rug, we're talking about it. There is a interpersonal relationship that's challenging, or one person feels offended by the other, and we're bringing it up and having assistance to like explore it and express it, of how we can get to the other side of it. And or somebody has a doubt, or somebody's struggling to follow, a path. I spoke on the phone the other day with somebody, and they were expressing how like they're just in this deep place of struggle,
Mm.
and it feels embarrassing because it's like I know
Mm.
all the tools, I know all the lessons, I have all the practices, like I've been doing this for so long. I should got this. I shouldn't be in this hole that I'm in right now. And so there ends up being this shame, or this, I shouldn't be doubting this, I should have clarity in this, I shouldn't be struggling with this. And then we don't feel like we're allowed to have doubts, or that we're allowed to have questions, or that we're allowed to have problems. And so we don't bring it up, and then we carry that alone. We carry this great burden of our struggles, of our doubts, of our shame, and then it compounds itself because nobody else is bringing it up also. So there's this idea that everyone around me is just solid in their faith and steady in their practice and
This is
clear on their direction, and then we feel worse. And then it's just like, we either live in this kind of schism identity, or we just carry on this shame, or we leave, we distance ourselves, or we isolate in some way. And so I think that, um, for all of us, and especially as we come, when we come to spiritual life, or when we come to like religion, there's this idea of just like, there's this beautiful sense of like acceptance and journey and exploration and becoming part of a family. But then very quickly it just gets to this place of like, okay, if I'm not dressing like this, or talking like this, or
yeah.
doing this every morning, or saying these prayers or these mantras a certain time of day, like, I don't belong here, you know?
Hmm.
So I think that there's something to Arjuna sharing with us, like, Arjuna, he's freaking Arjuna, you know?
Right.
It's like, how more elevated can you get, you
Yeah.
know? Grew up with Krishna as your cousin, Kunti. The prayers of Queen Kunti, which will come shortly after this battle of Kurukshetra, are his mother. Like, you imagine the little bedtime stories she told him, and the lessons. Just the other day, yesterday, was getting a call from her mother, who was leaving a message on her answering machine, just appreciating how Krishna conscious she is. Like, you imagine the little love notes. I used to, when I grew up, my mom lived at home. Like, my mom ran a daycare center from my home her whole life. So my mom was
Oh,
home all day, along with a dozen other kids.
yeah, yeah.
And so she would pack our lunches, and she would put little notes in my lunch bag or lunch box. Like little notes from her. And little things. Love you. And like, imagine the little love notes you get from Queen Kunti. You know what kind of like overwhelming spiritual lesson and guidance you would get.
And
I
they and
grew
they
up I grew up reading the Bernstein Bears and Rotten Ralph.
did.
They were getting something transcendental. So all of that with Arjuna, and still he's like, it's like embarrassing. Like, my mind is reeling, my skin is burning, my hair is standing on end, I'm crying and putting down my bow. And it's like, why do we feel we're not allowed to at any phase in our life? I spoke to somebody, you've been wanting to speak for a while, and I'm just going on a rant. But like, I just spoke to somebody else recently about like, we want to start offering like 12-step work at the Bhakti Center, and we're doing some of it, like yoga for 12-step recovery. And I was speaking to somebody who's a good friend, who's been in recovery for 20 plus years, and they were just saying very honestly, it's like, yeah, I had a relapse the other week. I was sober for 20
Wow.
years. I had a relapse, and I'm working through that. And it was very much like, yeah, like, that's okay. I mean, it sucks that you're going through that, and we recognize, but it wasn't like, oh my God, I doubt the whole program, and I thought I believed in you. Why are you doing? You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, I had a relapse, and I'm getting back on the program. I'm applying the same principles, and I'm working through it. And we don't allow ourselves that at all. Like, Arjuna's having a relapse. He's having a relapse right on the battlefield.
Yeah.
A philosophical, spiritual relapse.
And
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's like it has physical manifestations also. And what I feel like I'm hearing is that uh conflict, confrontation, and conflict resolution are not outside of spiritual values.
mm, Somebody write that one down. Put it in the chat. I feel like that's a
Yeah.
seminar title.
It's like conflict, confrontation, and conflict resolution are not outside of spiritual values. And I think we have this idea that, yes, that the conflict, that all of these things, we're facing this with somebody. It's like, oh my gosh, and how could you? And then you came and talked to me about it, like, oh, and then all we have this conflict and the conflict resolution, and there's a confrontation, and these people are so confrontational, and that's this, and I'm like, wait, what? Hold on, how did that get to be that this is separate from my spiritual devotional life?
Mm,
This is all part of the grand scheme of devotional life because this is me. All of me can be part of my devotional life. It is not that I am this way when I'm at the temple or with spiritually minded people, and I'm this way with everybody else. It's just me. And I think that this is such an example of Arjuna being brutally honest and really raw and authentic. He is being the most raw, the most authentic, and this is the example of the pure devotee. This is spirituality, being raw and authentic
mm.
in a safe space, of course.
Safe
But
space.
But that has to be the example of spirituality, not that we play it off or you're always faking it till you make it. You
Mm,
need a place where you can actually be raw and authentic in order to deal with the things. Otherwise, we're never going to get there.
yeah, yeah. 100%. Beautiful. Loving it. I shall we continue?
Sure. With the destruction of the dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion.
Mm,
Yeah, that is something. Um, he's putting a lot on himself. Granted, there is a lot on the line, but he's putting a lot on himself. He's like, if I take this one step forward, the entirety of society as I know it is going to come crumbling down. And it's going to be all my fault.
yeah.
Just mine, completely mine. They're going to say I'm selfish. They're going to say I'm greedy. They're going to say I'm all of these things. If I take this one step forward, the entirety of society is going to come crumbling down. And Krishna is about to tell him, he's like, it's already down. This is not on you. And
Mm,
how many times do we go through life? Everything is on us.
mm,
If I make this one decision, if I speak to this one person, if I like this one post, what does that say about me as a spiritual person and all of the values and traditions and all of these things that are riding on my shoulders? Do you know he's a singer. His name is David Archuleta. Do you know him? He
no,
was
but
on
I love
American
that last name, Archuleta.
right? He was on American Idol. Really like just he just seemed like the sweetest, gentlest guy ever. And he was like just a kid when he was on American Idol and then he came out with this song or whatever. And then recently he's in a production of Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat,
Ooh, I did that when I was in the
right?
fifth grade.
Right? Everybody does some sort of like Broadway and then we got to go and get the classics.
Joseph, Egypt looks to you.
So he was in it, and in there they have him wearing the Technicolor Dreamcoat, which is kind of it's like flowy outfit. But he wore it, and so many people were like, "Oh, we're disappointed in you. You know, you used to be such a good, upstanding person." And then he came out, and he was saying, "He's like, I think there's something going on more with my sexuality than I've been exploring before." And people were so like, "We're disappointed," and they keep bringing up this word disappointed. You're such a disappointment to society. And finally, he was like, "Hold on a second. How am I a disappointment for being authentic? I'm one human. If you don't want to be here, if you don't want to see, you could just easily go on about your business. But how did this become a matter of the entire society resting on me?"
Mm,
And I thought that was such a good way to put it. And I'm sure, I mean, I guess from what he shared in on his journey, that it comes from many years of therapy and talking out the conflict resolutions. But they're dating you. The whole chat is dating Doyle.
we got a chat going on here. If you ever want to get into our live chat and get in on the fun, the inside story, you got to get into our live Zoom chat. Um, how do you get it? Write to us at I guess we got to get a Spirit Matters at bhakticenter.org. I'm going to create
Yeah,
that today.
let's
You know,
do
we
it.
don't have that quite yet, but in 2 days' time, write to us at spiritmatters at bhakticenter.org. And so people are. I got a few good they keep me check they keep me in check over there.
I mean,
Yeah.
so this idea that if we do anything, the disappointment of all of society could come crashing down around us. And Krishna is about to really put things in perspective for Arjuna. He's really going to be like, what does that even really mean? What does that actually mean for you?
Yeah.
One, it's already happening, and then two, it's like, when we think the worst is occurring, especially when it comes to our identity, our reputation, what that reputation means for society, our roles in society, in family, in traditions. It's like, if I do this, then I'm going to be a disappointment to everybody. Everything is going to fall down around me. We got nothing. And then Krishna is about to be like, and then you'll wake up the next day and you're still going to have to go on with life.
Mm, yeah. Yeah.
This
I,
idea of having to like keep it moving.
yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I I'll be honest. I heard most of what you said, but I was also distracted by Pasha and Lane, who were chiding me about finding pictures of me performing Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
There were no pictures, and then they wondered if you had hieroglyphs. So that was
I
actually
hieroglyphs when I was in the, I didn't have pictures,
kind of
you know.
annoying.
I didn't have pictures at that time. We just shared memories around a campfire. That's all we did. My mom would make VHS memory tapes of us when we graduated high school that would just have like rotating pictures on a screen with Forever Young sung by who's the guy that oh my god, I can't even remember his name. Not Bob Dylan, but the one who did it you know what I mean? Forever Young, who's that singer?
I do remember Forever Young. I just can't remember who sung it. But then all I'm
Rod
thinking,
Stewart. Rod Stewart.
there we go. I'm like, all I'm thinking is
My
like
mom was
cheesy
in love with
Bryan
Rod Stewart.
Adams songs, like that are just like heavy with the synthesizer. I think we should bring back the synth, more synthesizer.
Yeah, no problems at all. But what I loved from what you said and what you shared, and in the story of David Archuleta, um, is how much for me it really goes back to faith, because it's how much we feel we're playing the controller, you know,
Yeah.
which is us inserting ourselves as the position of God in a situation. You know, I had a friend who was um, on vacation with family, and you know, family vacations can be tough sometimes. It was like a, you know, brother and a setting, and he was just like, I just had to be the dad the whole time, you know, and it's kind of like, you know, sometimes we feel like I've got to be the grown up, I've got to be the bigger person, I've got to be the one that figures it out, and it's like, why are you assuming that role? You know, why are you assuming that everything rests on your shoulders? You know, I'm not saying that that's a particular person. I'm saying we all feel that at times. I feel like I've got to be the bigger person in my marriage. I got to be the bigger person at work. I've got to like figure this out. Or and Arjuna's going through that. Like everything is resting on me. Like what about the other, you know, millions of soldiers on the battlefield? You know what I
It's
mean? Like
all
what
me.
about, you know? And so this idea of sometimes of taking on this role of like I've got to figure out everyone else's experience, because you said at the beginning, like we can't control consequences. Like we control the actions, but we can't control the actions of our consequences. I'm trying to control everything, my actions, other people's actions, the consequences of my actions, your response to my actions. And Krishna is just saying, and what we'll get so much in the Gita is like, you're just being called to do your duty and leave the results to me, whatever the results those may be: success, failure, honor, dishonor, happiness, distress, heat, cold. As long as like we're just so caught up in that, thinking that we're actually the doer and the cause of the results, we're going to be in this place of anxiety and tremendous pressure and stress.
Yeah. And especially if you come from a family where that is heavily, heavily valued. And Arjuna happened to come from a family and a tradition where that was heavily, heavily valued. And so, really, he's no longer even thinking about the fact that it is my duty to stand up for myself.
Mm,
Now he's just like, but how can I control all of these things, like you said, and controlling it and controlling it? And Krishna's about to be like, but isn't that exhausting, bro? It's exhausting, and you'll never be able to control all of that.
mm,
There's too many unlimited factors that come into play.
yeah.
It's like you've got to be able to surrender that and let that go. And Arjuna is not convinced at first, which I really, really love because neither are we.
Mm, yeah. He doesn't just be like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, we are at time, and we got to hear from Kimberly what we're taking away from today. Nothing about hieroglyphs or photos or my age.
We have a lot of takeaways today. Good nuggets. So we
Nuggets.
yes. We can't control the consequences of our actions, but we can control our actions, though. We are too busy not to pray. There is never a bad time to ask a question and to have doubts. And lastly, conflict, confrontation, and conflict resolution are not outside our spiritual values.
A 4-piece gold nugget. 4-piece gold nugget meal. Thank you, Kimberly. Got it. Golden nuggets. What do you got, Achuta? What are you walking away with today?
That questioning life, questioning myself, having a doubt, even having doubts about important things, and figuring them out is not a betrayal of any of who I am. It's never a bad time to talk it out with somebody that I trust.
Yeah, I love that. And an extension of that for me is just, there's so many things that I want to walk away with. One of them is just being also, allowing ourselves, as you mentioned, to struggle or have doubts, and allowing other people the same as well. Not holding somebody to a rigid standard that they're not allowed to go through challenges and grow through them in the way that Arjuna's exemplifying. So, and so, thank you. Thank you so much. Pasha said, one thing I love about our hosts is that you all practice what you preach. You have no idea. Tell that to my wife.
Can you imagine? You're like, conflict resolution is part of our spiritual goals. You're like, wait for it now.
Wait for it now.
Wait for
I have something to tell you after this call that I've been waiting to chastise you about. I actually hate you. All of you. I love you guys. Pasha, please. No, Pasha, don't sign off, Pasha. All right, guys, we love you so much. We are all practicing what we preach in a sense. We're not perfected what we're saying, but we're trying to practice, all of us. And that's why we're here. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here. Look forward to seeing you guys all tomorrow. Same time, same place. Be well. Take care. Bye-bye.